Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Dudes and Beer podcast. I am Chris Jordan, your host. Dudes and Beer is now officially brought to you by podcastcadet.com. If you're a fan of podcasting like me, have a podcast that's already running, or looking to start a podcast for yourself, business, church, family, friends, fun, whatever, stop on by podcastcadet.com. They have great packages there to hook you up with professionals in the podcast industry, everything from audio engineers and designers to graphic designers to get your artwork done, everything from distribution to monetization. Stop on by. Podcastcadet.com is the website. Dudes20 is the code that you want to use to save 20% off your entire package at podcastcadet.com today. Dudes20. Our guest today, the amazing, the awesome Miss Jessica Gerlach, host of the A Billion Realities radio show on Freedomizer Radio, available on Blog Talk Radio. Here to talk to us today about hypnosis for healing. How are you doing, Jessica? Long time no speak.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me back. It's great to talk to you again. I'm doing well. How about you?
I am doing fantastic. I always love our conversations and our time that we get to spend together. My fingertips are tingling right now.
Likewise.
Just from the energy. Your energy is always so infectious, so amazing. There's never a time that I don't leave a conversation with you charged with energy to go forth and do something.
Wow, that means so much to me. And likewise, ditto, it's the same. Yeah, our conversations are always just so free-flowing, and I love that. I always walk away with knowledge as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, you've been on the show before to talk about your work with opioid addiction. Your amazing series has actively been funded now, correct?
It's on its way, but everything is halted with the coronavirus, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yes, we are.
You are
should be ready to go. Yeah, when this is all over.
I am so entirely proud and happy for you that project got greenlit. I think that is such an amazing thing, such a beautiful topic to bring to the forefront of our society right now, as all of these things are hitting the news with, just heads of multinational corporations being held responsible
right.
for the opioid crisis that we and other countries have faced.
That's it. Yes. Thank you. It's true.
Oh, it's hard work from good people, good souls like you that have helped raise that to the top of the importance board in our country. So thank you so much for your work from abroad on that. Just so you know, folks, she is joining us today from Serbia. So
yeah,
I love the fact that you're one of our full-on international guests from all the way across the globe. So thank you so much always for taking the time. Tell us a little bit about the Billion Realities radio show on Freedomizer Radio and how you got into the world of hypnosis and healing.
So I got into hypnosis about 10, maybe a little bit more than 10 years ago. Psychology has always been something that I've been very, very interested in. I studied hypnosis and neuro-linguistics programming, and my goal with that, was to deal with people who have had traumas, related to abuse or even addiction, suicidal thoughts, anything traumatic, really, depression. So I think that because of the things that I had been through in my life that were difficult for me to get through, it made me, drawn. It drew me towards topics of surrounding psychology and how to heal trauma, basically. So that's how it initially sparked my interest, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's like you said, to move from psychology into that, especially into the world of neuro-linguistics. Let's pop into that topic real quick because it's something that our audience may not be familiar with. I'm fairly familiar with it just from my research into the world of subliminal psychology, things like that. But let's kind of crack that topic for a minute and discuss what neurolinguistics is and how it affects the brain.
Sure. So it's very interesting. So I'll just make a comparison to start off, and then I'll continue with the neurolinguistics. But so hypnosis, you always want to find out the why the person feels that way, or what happened in order, that drove them to the unhealthy state that they're in now. But with NLP, the why is not important. It's all about interrupting the neurotransmitters that are being sent from one part of the brain to the other that's triggering. So you want to basically just interrupt a neurotransmitter and redirect it. So you're literally rewiring the brain without having to know why. For example, if somebody wants to stop smoking, we don't care why in neurolinguistic programming. We're just going to interrupt that pattern with a series of practices that we would execute, with the person. Whereas with hypnosis, we're going to possibly bring you back to your childhood to see what happened, or, bring you back to whatever it was that happened, and then start redirecting and rewiring the brain from there. So 2 different approaches, but very effective work used together. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's really important to make that distinction because the one, like you said, is very much the instead of this, do that. So instead of having a cigarette, wiggle your pinky.
Exactly.
You're replacing one thing that the brain is looking for with another, whereas the other is really kind of bypassing the walls that have been put up by the psyche, and figuring out the cause of trigger effects, like figuring out what causes and triggers my anxiety, and things like that. And this is very different than stage hypnosis. That I think is what most people immediately comes to mind is the mesmer effect. The concept of mesmerization, being able to do it live in front of an audience, make people do things that they would normally not do. And that's still hypnosis. Correct?
It is, yes. But, there's a kind of a rule in hypnosis, and we have to explain this to a lot of people, especially for those who don't have any experience with it or understand exactly what it is that you won't do anything that you're morally or ethically not okay with, even under a state of hypnosis, which is really just a deep form of relaxation or meditation, really. When we put somebody under, you're fully aware. You still have awarenesses, let's say.
Yeah.
So you're not in another zone and not yourself. We're just taking the person to such a relaxed state that their suggestive ability, their ability to take suggestions is heightened, because that's how we affect the subconscious, which is 95% of our behaviors.
That's exactly where I was going to get into, was the subconscious, the concept of the subconscious, because once again, this is a very misnomered concept. Everybody thinks that, once again, whenever you go into a state of hypnosis, that you're going to go into a full-on trance. You're going to dissociate,
and that's
as though you're on a dissociative medication and you won't feel what's going on in your body. None of that is actually the case.
It's not to that extent, for sure. Some people fall into a deeper state of hypnosis than others. That's true, but you're never completely unaware. You're still, Yeah.
Well, and
you're still present.
Even the concept of not being able to be hypnotized, I think that really just comes down to, dude, you're just straight up ADD.
That's very true.
Like,
and actually,
quite literally, it's how deeply you are able to focus and pay attention on what that hypnotist is doing. The more distracted you get, the less it's going to work. It's not that you're unhypnotizable.
Absolutely. And you just bring up such a great point, because we know in hypnosis, obviously through studies and statistics, people who are used to taking orders, like soldiers or people part of like a regimented program,
yep,
or some type of system where they've had to follow orders, they're a lot more
susceptible.
Yeah, they can be hypnotized a lot easier than somebody who's like a free thinker, who's rebellious, you know what I mean? Who's not part of a structured system.
Yeah.
So, and it's honestly, what it really comes down to is anybody can be hypnotized if they are willing.
If
they
right.
choose it.
That's right. Yeah. You really do. It really is that full active conscious participation.
That's true.
And, you know, there to give a prime example, there are numerous stories, and I'm sure situations you've been in where you're working with clients, things like that, and maybe a family member is nearby and they go under as well. Because they're literally so entranced with what's going on, and they're focusing on the moment themselves. So they, by proxy, become hypnotized.
That can happen, absolutely, because honestly, it's just like if you're listening to a guided meditation.
Yeah.
And also, people don't realize that we slip in and out of a state of hypnosis all throughout the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you're driving home from work and you know that route so well, like the back of your hand, people will often get home and think to themselves, well, I don't even remember driving home. I can't, let's say if there are 2 routes home and they drive either one of those 2 routes every other day or whatever it is. Yep. Sometimes they'll forget which route they took home because they're so familiar with both of them. Or they take the same route home every day and they know it so well that they do slip into a state of hypnosis.
Yeah.
So
it's when you look up and you go, oh, dang, man, I just went through traffic. I didn't even realize that.
That's right.
Yeah, because it's such a rote habit. And it really is that muscular response. I'm in the midst of trying to retrain my brain right now to the point of meditation, because I used to be able to actively dream.
Okay.
Actively take part in my dreams, go to sleep with intention for searching for solutions.
Lucid. Okay.
Things like that. And my brain is, I can barely find a moment of quiet anymore. To be able to sit on the floor with one of my crystals and be able to go into a state of meditation used to be like 5 minutes down the line for me. Now it's like almost impossible.
Wow. Interesting.
And yeah, and it's literally just it's a choice that I made. It is a sacrifice that I made that one of my regrets in life. But it's like you said, it's the ability is the desire. The ability to be hypnotized is the desire to be hypnotized. You have to be willing for that to take place. I have to be willing for this shift in my brain to take place.
It does take a lot of effort,
It does.
People are under the impression that people who do hypnosis on other people are perfect and we don't have any bad habits. Well, no, we all do. It's a matter of choosing to work on the ones that you don't want to have a part of your life anymore.
Yeah.
So people will, assume that, well, you must be great in all these areas, that you don't get depressed or you don't get anxious or you've moved through all of your traumas because you help other people with yours.
Oh.
Well, no, because that takes work for me too. And it's a matter of me apply myself, which I have used self-hypnosis for many, many things, and
Sure.
it's so effective. But I also am very big on meditation, which I find very similar, actually. Is very similar in many respects. But yeah, it's a matter of a person making a choice. So in the book that I'm writing now, it's all about taking power back of the mind. So I talk about a lot of this stuff and resilience, and it's a matter of saying to yourself, okay, this is interfering with my life, my happiness, my well-being. And I got to the breaking point where I've decided I want to change it, and then seeking out the tools that work for you. And hypnosis is a fantastic one just because it literally works with the subconscious mind. So as we were just saying before, you can make a decision consciously all you want, but the fact that your conscious mind is only dictating 5% of what you do throughout the day, if you're not actually embedding those new suggestions and behaviors and healthier habits into the subconscious mind, it's going to be really hard for you to stick with your new program. If you know what I mean.
Oh, no,
so
absolutely, because it's a muscle.
It is.
It is a muscle, and when you don't exercise it, it atrophies. And it's not that your brain has forgotten how to flex that muscle. It's just going to take you a lot more effort to flex that muscle. You know, like you don't forget how to ride a bike. Your body remembers the balance, the motion, the locomotion it takes to maintain the balance. What it forgets is the coordination to do it.
That's right.
It remembers all the motions. It just takes some time and some strength for you to get that back up if you haven't ridden a bike in 10 years. You know, so as opposed to when I was working in a church every day, when I was praying every day, the way I was praying, I still pray every day, but it's not a point of ecstatic prayer.
Okay.
Where that state is reached, because that takes time, that takes practice, and when you don't flex that muscle for a long time, it takes some time to get back there. It is very much intent. Other things got focused on in my life. I moved away from that in order to focus on something else and build myself and my family up, and that's great. But now I'm trying to find my road back to that, and trying to find my 5-10 minutes a day where at least I am, despite what I'm doing, being intentful in that way.
That's amazing. And you're right. It does take getting back to a certain place because, for example, when I listen to self-hypnosis or hypnosis videos by some of the people I love in that industry, that they have videos on YouTube, usually they take you through, like I said, the guided meditation and all that. So when I'm actively listening to hypnosis and working on a particular thing in my life for a long period of time, let's say even 2 weeks straight or a month, I get to the point where I'm so used to it again, and I'm so easily able to relax after a while that I'll actually skip over most of the meditation in the beginning or the relaxation part of the hypnosis because I'm already back into that groove and I can shut my mind off because I've been listening to it every day or a couple times a day for a few weeks or whatever it is. But when I stop listening to it for a while and then I want to work on something again, I'll have to go through that relaxation process to get to the point where I need to be because I'm out of the groove, like you were saying.
And, you know, what I've found, especially as much as I travel, which is close to about 30 weeks a year, typically, probably not this year.
No, not this year.
Probably not. But I actively got what's a MUSE headband. Have you ever heard of these?
No, I don't think so.
It's a great little headband. You can pick up the cheaper one for about $150 typically, and it's a brainwave headband. collects all 5 brain waves, Bluetooth powered, so it goes to your cell phone or to your tablet. And with the purchase of the MUSE and registering onto their app, you get a certain number of exercises, things like that. And it's basically mindfulness meditation, teaching you to focus on your breathing, things like that. And as you go through the exercise, you'll select whether you want a cityscape or like a rainforest or a beach, and that's the sound that you'll hear. So if you have a cityscape, you'll hear the sound of footsteps and cars, things like that, when your mind is distracted. So your baseline is like the sound of a city street. And as you start to focus on your breathing and everything else, you'll start hearing birds chirp.
Wow, that's incredible.
And the more you focus on your breathing, the more birds chirp. And then at the end, it gives you a graph and shows you, and you get to save it, and you can make little notes and stuff in a diary, and you can go back and you can see your progress and how fast you're able to get into that point of meditation, into that point of relaxation.
That is incredible.
It's great, man. And not only that, I've got a $20 app that actually lets me connect that thing to the MIDI on my keyboards. So now I can drive the MIDI frequencies of my keyboards with the frequencies from my brain.
That is incredible. Seriously, how have I not heard of this? I'm going to have to get that.
It's great. I highly recommend it. If anybody in the field that you're in, especially biofeedback therapy, stuff like that, it's the second version is probably about $80, $90 more, but it does respiration and heart rate as well. But you can go through, there are tons of apps that you can get that will actively live graph and show you all of your brain waves at the same time.
That's insane.
It's beautiful. It's like what you would pay to go do a sleep study for, or pay at a major clinic for like $100 at your house. It's great.
That is unreal. I can't wait to get that.
It's been a game changer for me. Like I said, trying to get back on that mental bicycle of meditation, of deep meditation. And just being able to find that moment of quiet and being able to bring myself to it, especially with the anxiety that I suffer socially sometimes. Working in the environments that I work in, I need to be able to gather myself rapidly before that cascades into an anxiety attack. So,
I can relate.
and it really is, even with my anxiety, just being mindful of the fact and tracing things back to when I started getting anxious and realizing that the only reason I'm anxious is because I care too much.
I can absolutely relate. So it totally resonates with me what you're saying.
And to start to understand that process in yourself is really a big part of the healing. It really is like finding your own trigger. And figuring out, it's doing that self-hypnosis basically without being hypnotized, just by going, okay, what did I care so much about in the last hour that I would be upset?
Yes, I can't believe you're saying this, just because I've just been on a rapidly expansive spiritual journey, forever, but lately it's like all of my triggers have become so obvious to me all of a sudden. And I've realized that even being in a crowded space or an event, and I'm, obviously the type of work I do have to be at public events. Yep. I have about a 2-hour limit before I start feeling anxiety, exhausted, drained, and I realize it's because I'm such an empath.
Yep.
And I'm so in tune with other people's feelings and emotions, and I'm super heightenedly aware.
Just the filtering of it in and of itself is exhausting. Literally, just the filtering and keeping that away from you wears you down.
And it's nobody's fault.
No,
it's just me. It's just how I'm built. And I've realized
You
that
care
and
too
people
much.
I do, and people are shocked when they hear that about me because they think I'm like the most social person
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
And I actually am. I'm very social.
It's a lot of
But-
effort to be social. Like
Yes.
a lot.
Yeah.
A wearing
Yeah.
amount.
Yep. And
Like-
I realized that would trigger certain things in me, like, okay, well, I have to be at this event for a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a drink, you want to have a glass of wine, you know what I mean? And then
That's
the longer
right.
you're at. So these are all the things that I've become aware of.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, doses, try to do things like in a healthier way, deal with your stress in a healthier way, deal with my anxiety in a healthier way. So yeah, I have all the struggles just, the same as anyone else who's using hypnosis. And,
Yeah.
I'm doing it on other people, but I still struggle with a lot of those things. And I still have to use hypnosis on myself to get those things under control,
Yeah. And it really is, to bring it home a little bit more, like I said, that concept of self-hypnosis, that concept of digging into yourself and figuring out what these things are and just being real with yourself and recognizing it. Don't judge yourself about it. Be okay with it. It's you. It's how you're built. It's all right. We're all different. A lot of my anxiety comes from just like I said, filtering, being around the energy. And after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I need to go outside. I need to be away for 10 or 15 minutes. Literally.
Me too. That's what I've realized as well. Yeah.
Like I typically carry a crystal with me.
That's amazing.
Most of the time. It's my friend. I don't travel without it. It's with me all the time, and it's really more there as a point of center.
I
When
love that.
When it's there with me, when I hold it, I'm centered. And no matter what the situation is, that's the thought process that goes on in my head. With this, I am centered. I'm here.
I love that because
now.
You're grounding yourself.
That's right.
When you start to feel like, because when we're so empathetic, like we were saying, we feel pulled in a lot of different directions, even though nobody's doing anything wrong to us per se. It's just all of that energy and all of our awarenesses and caring so much. So we do have to ground ourselves. But I think it's amazing that you know what works for you and you know what to do, because it's only recently that I'm really aware of that with myself, and I'm trying to use new ways to balance myself out, ground myself when I'm feeling like, okay, there's just like a lot of energy overload.
Yeah.
So, but crystals are amazing for that.
They're great for it. They're actively made for it. That's what they do is vibrate. That's all they do is vibrate.
That's right.
Love
it.
And yeah.
So what will you do when you take your crystal? You'll step outside, and do you do like a breathing exercise or what?
Yeah, it'll normally be just a small self conversation of where are you at, what are you feeling, why are you feeling that?
Amazing.
And the main thing is the where are you at?
Mm-hmm.
You're right now. You're right here. You're nowhere else. Tomorrow isn't happening. Yesterday isn't happening. Right now is happening. And that really does bring forth the mindfulness, at least to me, of whatever happened yesterday cannot filter into this moment that was yesterday. Mm-hmm. Whatever might happen tomorrow cannot filter into this moment. You cannot let those things make your mind up for this moment. You can't. Mm-hmm. This moment is individual. This person, this situation that you're dealing with is individual, and it can't be affected by what happened to you when you were 8. It can't logically be affected by what happens to you tomorrow. It is here.
Right.
It is now. It is an individual situation.
Love that.
That's the conversation that I try to have to myself. And it was literally from that exercise that I was given to start realizing that you're having anxiety because you care too much. The reason you're having an anxiety attack is because something happened that upset you that you care about so much. Whether it happened to your family, whether it's something that's going wrong at the event, that if you had had a chance to do that, you could have fixed it. Whatever. That's the situation, is that you care too much. Now, the real question is that something that needs to be cared about right now? Is that something that needs to rent the spare space in your head?
Yeah, I love that you're saying that as well, because I've realized for many years, I think that I was absorbing so much of the energy or, personality traits, or more so the energy of other people in the room. And so I have to remind myself when I go into a public space, even if I'm not leading an event or something like that, just a public gathering, I have to literally consciously remind myself to have my own energy, to bring my own energy into the space and not to absorb other people's.
Yeah.
So it's a process, it takes practice.
And how do you do that? How do you go about realizing that filter and differentiating between that energy? Because I think that's a really important thing for people to realize is the differentiation between the energy that they are originating and the energy that they are filtering at the same moment.
I think it's just understanding about myself that I have such a heightened awareness when it comes to how other people are feeling. And I will pay attention to everything about a person when I'm around them or talking to them. I mean, I'm talking down to body language, to their posture, to their movements, to their energy, to their facial expressions, to the tone of their voice. And I process all of that very just automatically. It's like second nature. And probably because of my studies in psychology, and hypnosis and all that, we're taught to pick up on that. But it's something I've always had naturally anyway. And I just can feel energy without even probably some of those other things. I can just get a vibe. So all of that put together, it's something that, I have to process. And I do protective light meditations now. Okay. So that helps me to stay grounded in my own energy and to focus on the energy I want to bring and not just absorb somebody else's, even though I feel like I still do both. And I still do struggle with it from time to time, especially if I sense somebody is uncomfortable, upset, or anxious. I can feel all of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or
angry.
Yeah, that's like walking into 6-foot waves in the ocean to me. Whenever I walk into a room, it's like getting kicked in the gut.
Same.
I can feel it in a heartbeat when when there is like angst in a room or something like that, and I walk in. It's like, oh man, and pay attention to that, folks, because we all feel it. Like we and it really comes down to the point of we are salt and water. We're two things that respond highly to vibration. We're walking crystals is what we are. And to be able to tune into that, to be able to realize that, I think I know it sounds like your host is hippy dippy inside, folks. He is. I'm wearing a tie-dye right now. With a spread of crystals on my desk in front of me. All my friends sitting here with me every day, because I truly believe they change my world. And you said a minute ago that you use white light meditation. Now I am familiar with that. Just in, and I'm going to make the parallel here. Don't draw these parallels, audience, but I'm going to make the parallel here between high magic and the concept of the white light meditation. And it's basically the idea of, at least this understanding of it, is the idea of putting yourself inside of a sphere of white light and nothing else comes in that you don't allow.
Exactly.
And it's kind of the same process, right?
It is. My mom taught me how to meditate when I was like 13 years old. So I have a few different ways that I will do it. But the divine light one is literally stepping into the all loving, all knowing, all seeing, pure love and light.
Yeah.
And yeah, just submersing yourself in that until you literally become one with it. So like it protects you from the inside out. And it's so crazy because I have a friend of mine who's kind of like a Reiki massage therapist. Her name is Yelena. She lives in this village here. She's incredible. She's an amazing person. She was massaging me the one day, and she could tell that I had been going through something and I was a bit tense. And I was trying to let her work on me with her energy, but I had been doing like protection, divine light meditations for days and days and days before that. She was like, she goes, I don't know what it is, but there's something about your energy that's rejecting mine.
Yeah.
Like,
Stop blocking me. Stop blocking me and let me do my work.
Yeah. And then I told her, I said, well, that's my fault because I've been putting a protective barrier around myself for anybody's energy, good or bad, right?
Oh, that's good stuff.
She's like, that's what it is. I'm like, yep, for sure. I'm like, okay, let me try to let you in, you know?
Yeah, let me see if I can release that inner muscle in my brain real quick and let you in there to do your work.
That's pretty much
let you do what I'm paying you to do.
Precisely.
Yeah. And, it's so interesting that, at least to me, that these two worlds cross over. The world of hypnosis and the world almost of parapsychology. Just the odd ways that our brains work and the ways that we associate things together. Now, how frequently is it that you do like regressive healing therapy with people? Because that's kind of a different type of hypnosis where you're going in and trying to remove past trauma and trying to find the root of trauma.
Right. So I think it's very necessary with certain types of traumas, and I'll give you an example. So I don't do past life regression. That's a whole other niche, but I love it, and I would totally be a willing participant.
Same.
Although I've never done it. But when it comes to regressing somebody back to their childhood, especially when it comes to certain traumas, it's very necessary because that's where their trauma stems from. So what you want to do is take them back to a childlike state. And as we all know, when you're a child, you feel vulnerable in the world, especially if you've been neglected or abused or have any type of traumas that you saw, by accident or whatever it is. A child's mind, they just want to feel safe. They just want to feel protected, and they just want to feel loved. So if any of those things were broken in a child, you want to bring them back to that vulnerable state, allow them to feel that, and then get them throughout the hypnosis process and probably multiple sessions to review that event or those circumstances as an adult who's empowered, who's in control, who's not vulnerable. And that's how in hypnosis we can basically change the way they look at it from a subconscious level and the way that they feel about it, which is more important. It's the way that they feel about that particular circumstance.
Well, and that really goes straight back to what we were talking about with the subconscious and how the subconscious works and the misnomer of the subconscious that exists in society. Once again, it's that rote muscular response. It's that karate reflex where you have practiced the same motion so many times that it's now reflex for you to do it.
That's true.
This is a protective mechanism of the brain to block trauma out for you to lie to yourself, for you to keep that buried inside, for you to keep the walls up around it. That's still an active choice, whether you're making that choice subconsciously through a muscular response or whether you're making that choice willingly every day. It's still a choice.
It is. And I want to tell you something that's so outstanding to me. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand. So when you have an event that's traumatizing to you as a child, so I'll give an example. If you were abandoned by a parent as a child, you may have think that you have moved past that or it's not affecting you in your life, but it does very often and most often. And here's why. Because our programming then from that point on, it's protecting us from that happening again, but it's also telling us that that's what we deserved.
That's right.
So what happens is we continuously create situations to prove that our subconscious programming is true.
Right. Yeah.
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 And so
that's how the cycle of abuse continues.
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah. And that's why we can, when we've had a trauma like that, we will create those situations and push people away so that they will abandon us, so that our subconscious mind and our programming can be like, see, I was right.
Or even choose relationships that are similar to our abuser.
Exactly. That is what I was just talking about last night on my show as well, because one of the guys that I was speaking to, his mother was obviously like, with his father, and there was abuse there, pretty severe abuse as well. Traumatic things for a child to see.
Yeah.
So she ended up leaving his father and getting into another relationship right after that, which was just as, if not more, abusive than the first one. And I said to him, I said, well, that's not uncommon at all. That's very common, because until you've healed from the traumas of the first abuse that you've had, you're going to draw more of that in, because you haven't taught yourself that you didn't deserve it. You haven't felt your self-love and self-worth. So you literally take on other people who are exactly the same. And your programming is telling you that that's what you deserve still, because you haven't healed from it.
That's right.
This is why hypnosis is so effective.
Yeah, and it's literally the distillation of, my dad loved me. He did this to me. Other people who love me should do that to me too.
That's right.
It's literally that simple of an equivocation when it comes down to it inside the brain.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And, I know I've talked to you about it before. I'm going to ask you again right now. We have about 10, 15 minutes left. I would love to go through a regressive session on air. One of my dreams with this show is to expose people to things like this, expose people to different paradigms. Like I want to go through an ayahuasca journey on air.
Right.
All kinds of stuff, just so that, number one, it's there, it's recorded. Like whatever, I'm a bare open book. I don't care. I have nothing in the world to hide from anybody. I'm unashamed. But I would be interested to listen back to that afterward. I would be interested to see what that's like, to have my wife here as witness on the show. Things like that. So I don't know. Would you be willing to do that?
I wouldn't be able to do it today.
No, not today. That's what I'm saying. We have about 15 minutes left on the show, but
I was going to say it's not enough time, and plus I would have to write a script just for you.
Yeah.
So when we do the one-on-one, it's not like a YouTube video, obviously, but absolutely.
Dude, that'd be great.
Yeah, we could totally go through that. And we could, bring you back to a childhood event or whatever it was.
Totally.
They've actually had people, I haven't done this personally, but there's been regression, not past life, regression hypnosis done on people who have remembered something that happened when they were like 4 months old that they could not possibly have remembered, and then have proven that it was true.
And I'll give you a prime example, folks. I'm pretty sure probably early on in this show, I shared this story. But many years ago, whenever I first moved to Austin, I was going through on Facebook and went and invited a friend, somebody that I'd known literally my whole life. We went through elementary school together, junior high, high school. I invited her to be my friend. You know, she popped up on my timeline. You may know so-and-so. I was like, I do know so-and-so. Hey, so-and-so, what's going on? And she sent me back this message that was like, I can't believe you asked me to be your friend.
What?
And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And she went into this huge story about how I had told people at school that this traumatic event had happened, and that my cousin was involved in the event, and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, I mean, I remember my cousin having an issue at one point and having to move away and stuff like that, but dude, I don't remember ever saying anything to people in my class. I don't even remember that being a topic of conversation in my, like, I remember it being a topic of conversation in my household that my cousin got in some trouble and had to go away. And here's why he had to go away. But I don't remember you being personally involved in that.
Oh, wow.
And it was literally one of those things. I was like, if that doesn't characteristically sound like something I would do, I'm not a gossip. I'm not somebody who's a vindictive type person who just says things about people. We definitely had somebody who ran in the same crowd, who knew both of us and who knew my cousin and stuff, who may have been the one. But if I did, I'm so sorry. And I'm so sorry if I traumatized you in life for doing that. This completely explains some of the distance that we had, even though we had similar friends and friends in the same group, why there was a huge standoffishness.
Wow.
And things like it made a whole bunch of puzzle pieces for like high school community and things really fit together.
Oh, wow.
You know?
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
But it was like, wow, is that something that I actively blocked out of my head? Like, whoa. And it was really a big moment for me of like, you know, what have I karate reflexed in my life?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I've had similar experiences where I'm like, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted when it happened. Like I was taken aback for days. It threw me for a loop, man. Because, you know, like I said, I'm a pretty open book. I'm a pretty nice guy. I don't go around gossiping about people or sharing private information about people, things like that.
Sure. Right.
I mean, even right now, I'm protecting my cousin and her by not discussing the actual situation or anything that happened. It's 30 years in the past. I'm not even naming names, but I'm not giving the situation either, you know, because that's how much I believe in protecting people. So it's like, that just does not characteristically sound like something I would do, but did I do that?
It could have been a misunderstanding. And
it could have been. It could have been.
When we're teenagers.
No, this was elementary, hon. This was like fourth grade that this incident happened.
Oh, so
that's what I'm saying. Like it explains our social relationship all from that point on. And even though the fact that we had friends in the same group and everything, that there was an air between us, you know?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. It put a lot of things together. It was really weird. And it was one of those things, like I said, did I block that out? Was that gone? You know? Like, did I do that? Oh, my Lord. Like, yeah, just really weird. And one of those moments where it really hit me, like, you know, I'm fully aware of the lies that I told during my addiction, things like that, all kinds of stuff. But man, what else is in there?
Yeah.
You know, what other things have full on affected relationships in my life that I am not aware of?
That would definitely be a good one to regress back to for sure. So you could get some insight into what was going on there, because a lot of people do get these completely crazy recollections of situations that they've literally buried.
Well, and it really is the fact. This is the case of where it comes into facts are up to the observer. Facts in situations like this are
so true.
Are filtered by the observer. They are filtered by their emotion. They are filtered by their recollection. And everything relating to that situation from that point forward in life is filtered through that lens.
Definitely.
Yeah, it
is.
So the work that you're doing,
quantum physics at its finest.
It is. It really is, and that's what's wild. That's what I'm saying. Like, to know that we are walking crystals, to know that all of this stuff, like hypnosis, our brain, everything goes into quantum physics. It all eventually steps into this realm of like, what the what?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely amazing. It's amazing what this brain inside of our heads can do with that other 85-90% that we are not using, folks. And it's great that there are people like you out there, Jessica, to help tap that other percentile. To help people get through their trauma, to help people progress in life instead of staying in that point of regression. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's important, man.
You know, I just hate to see people get. Oh, I lost you for a second.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
It's important.
I got you back now. Okay.
It's important for people.
I think it might have been on my end.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's important for people not to get stuck because nothing is permanent if you don't want it to be. And that's my main message usually when it comes to traumas, you know?
Yep. Yeah. No, exactly. It's you keep it as long as you want to keep it. You really do. Treat each moment as individual, folks. Stop filtering those things through the lens of things that happened to you in the past. That person that you were actively talking to is not that person. The situation that you were stepping into is not that situation.
Right.
Stop having the conversation on the way to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Let the table happen, and let what happens at the table stay at the table.
Right.
You know, like you don't have to drag it along with you. You might be surprised at how fast you move around when you don't drag it a whole lot with you.
That's right. And remember, the way that you feel ultimately is your choice. The tools are out there. They're free, even, so, you know, and they're accessible and easily, you know, you can just go on YouTube and find ways to change how you feel. Look at hypnosis, look at meditation, look at binaural beats, any of these things that change the way that you feel about things.
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of changing the way you feel about things, thank you so much for changing my day with this conversation, Jessica. Thank you so much for changing the paradigm of our audience every time you come on.
Thank you.
Can't wait until the next appearance when I'll be hypnotized. That'll be awesome.
Oh, me too.
So until then, tell everybody.
And I'd love to have you on my show now.
Oh, no, I'd love to. Anytime. I am always open for great conversation and for changing the world as we know it. Getting people to literally start to realize the power within themselves and the power that they have, that they can exact on the world and the universe in good ways. No evil ways, people. We don't need none of that. Plenty of that out there.
That's right.
So
no, we don't.
let the audience know where they can go to get a hold of A Brilliant Realities, your amazing show on Freedomizer Radio, where they can go to get episodes, tune in, live, all that kind of good stuff. Jessica, let them know where they can come find you.
Yeah, sure. So you can just go to Freedomizer Radio on Blog Talk Radio. It's A Billion Realities by Jessica Gerlach. You can also add me on Facebook or Instagram, where I do post every episode.
All right. Well, fantastic. We are actively losing the connection now. I'm sure people are getting out and about in Serbia on the internet right now, which is between our two time zones. everything is starting to happen right now. So
I think that's true.
Thank you so much for the time. While you're online checking out everything with Jessica Gerlach and Billion Realities, make sure to stop on by the Dudes and Beer podcast. That is where you can find all the episodes. That's where you can find the News You Can Use section. If you like all the news that we share on Facebook, stop on by and check out News You Can Use. That's where it's all pulled from, folks. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. Follow us online. Check us out on the HC Universal Network. And don't forget, podcastcadet.com. Code DUDES20. Until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and if you can't be good at it. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dudes and Beer Podcast. To listen to our audio streams or chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for Android and iDevices, available on Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Breach.tv, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more about our sponsors and other podcasts on this network, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.